Welcome to World of Monsters. I'm Monster Master Arthur, and welcome to an episode of mythical creatures here at World of Monsters. And I know it's been a while, but if you're new here, then these episodes are basically your YouTube video Bestiary compendium. That's right, instead of a thick ancient book, you have this video library here of every monster, mythical creature from history, from legend, from A to Z. So today, please welcome the subject of the talk, the great, the all-powerful, the Gorgon! Ancient Greek word gorgos, which means terrible or dreadful, possibly originating as an onomatopoeia of the word garg in Sanskrit, an ancient South Asian language known as a philosophical language of Hinduism and relating religions. An onomatopoeia is a word that phonetically imitates or suggests the sound that it describes, such as the words chirp, meow, hiccup, swish, or roar. Garg, gorgos, gorgon. Here are the topics that will be discussed in this entire episode, all parts included, starting with origin and history, physiology, the science of the Gorgon, as well as exploring its different appearances and character, classification, life, involving culture and society, tool, weapon, and armor usage, as well as magic, the Gorgon's strengths and weaknesses, factions, the power level we've assigned it, all the similar beasts out there, and finally a list of movies where you can find the Gorgon.
History and origin.
Here's where the confusion behind the Gorgon's humanoid and bull portrayals will be disambiguated. Perhaps the earliest mentioning of the Gorgon as we know it today by this name, or the Gorgon's head, within Homer's ancient manuscript, Iliad, of around 730 to 700 BCE. Here the Gorgon's wicked face appears as ornamentation on Agamemnon's shield and Athena's aegis. The Gorgon is a phantom of the underworld, and the context is simple but soon gains momentum. Gorgons and their complexities were first written about within the book Theogony, which was written by Greek poet Hesiod or Hesiod, who lived between 700 and 600 BCE. And the Gorgons who dwell beyond glorious ocean, in the frontier lands towards night, where are the clear-voiced Hesperides, Stheno, and Uriel, and Medusa, who suffered a woeful fate. She was mortal, but the two were undying and grew not old. This is also the earliest recorded mentioning of Medusa. And from here on forth within Greek art, the Gorgon took on various forms, always with the face directed at the viewer. As described by Homer, the face appeared hideous, meant to frighten the opponent. Curly hair, large fangs, a protruding thick tongue, and beneath it all, a beard, though it is also debated as being hair from behind. The figure took upon a normal humanoid form with the additions of one or two pairs of wings, as well as often being depicted with having swirly boots. Different variations continued to emerge, such as a Gorgon with a more centaur-like body, to one resembling that of a hippocampus sort. Medusa of Hesiod's tale became more and more popularized, as within the Greek myth, she was one out of the 3 Gorgon sisters to be mortal. These Gorgons were parented by the sea god and goddess Phorcys and sister wife Gato, who in some myths also parented the great Echidna. The Gorgon took upon a more feminine facial appearance with, at times, wings upon her head, ranging from young and attractive to serpentine, as later stories told of all 3 Gorgons having hair of serpents and the power to turn anyone into stone that gazed upon them. By 8 AD or CE, Roman poet Ovid brought forth more depth to the story, explaining that only Medusa had venomous snakes for hair due to being cursed by goddess Athena for attracting god Poseidon with her gold hair and beauty so much that he violated her. Athena also affixed a curse upon Medusa that would turn anyone who stared upon her into stone. In this mythos, Gorgoaix, primal Gorgon, was also sometimes referred to as Medusa's father. Although this is an episode about the general Gorgon, aspects of the most influential influential one, Medusa, had to be mentioned. If you'd like a more in-depth reach into mythology behind Medusa, do let me know below. Archaeologist Marija Gimbutas argues that the Gorgon face may date further back than 6000 BCE, originating in Sesklo culture, and this is interesting as the Gorgon's roots may not only go back further than 8th century BCE, but to a different land all in all. I speak of the Humbaba, which was first mentioned in a second tablet of the Epic of Gilgamesh, written in 2100 BCE in Mesopotamia. Humbaba was a guardian of Cedar Forest, where the gods lived. He is described as having a face of a lion, the look of death. Sounds similar? A roar that is a flood, breath that is fire, and exceptional hearing. Looking at the portrayals of the great Humbaba, it is reasonable to see a chance that the early designs of the Gorgon could have been the product of cultural evolution upon Humbaba. But there lurks a greater phenomenon behind its design, which will lead us into its symbolism. Frightening faces like that of the Gorgons have appeared worldwide, such as the one at the center of the Mayan calendar, to that of Kali's, with a similar expression and exposed tongue. Do they relate? Have they been passed on from older societies to newer? Considering the positioning of the Gorgon's face, for instance above doorways and on shields, it was clearly being treated as an apotropaic symbol, a symbol to ward off evil similar to the likes of Nazars, or gargoyles. Consequently, the Gorgon's physical inspirations came from the natural world, from the intimidating appearances of the snake and the lion, as this feline's impressions were just as chaotic in usage. In some traditions, the Gorgon was also a personification of Earth, herself being a creation of Gaia's, though upon further exploration on the more malevolent side of its appearance, we happen upon another horrifying entity. One can hardly argue that the Gorgon hadn't originated to some degree from the Assyrian winged demon of the underworld, Pazuzu. Pazuzu, a snake embodying bearded female, at times. The likeness in appearance is undeniable, and even its description nicely correlates. Pazuzu was no doubt evil. However, the demon was actually invoked as protection against evil. Similar to the use of the Gorgon's head against evil? Being such a frightening image that all lesser demons and spirits would flee at its sight. Circa 2000 to 1000 BCE. Other notable and similar figures are the Oni of ancient Japan and the Hindu Kirtimukha, whose motifs have been around since the Shang dynasty. Then there was the Egyptian snake deity, Apep or Apep, also known as Apophis, who signified chaos that may relate somewhere with the history of the Gorgon, as it does with the conniving snake of the later Abrahamic religions. Archaeological findings hint at belief in this deity spanning as far back as 4000 BCE. It seems Marija Gimbutas may have had a strong theory about the Gorgon's roots dating so far back, as we are nearing that point of 6000 BCE currently in our search. This subject of snake-like deities and snake worship is a huge topic of its own. Why another greatly linked entity is the creationist god Quetzalcoatl, which I have made an in-depth video about and must recommend to anyone fascinated in this most ancient of scaly subjects. But there are always further analyses corresponding with various belief systems, particularly in Medusa's case, with her story bringing up interpretations in the themes of how powerful women should be limited, or even male castration. The Gorgon is truly unique, particularly when observing its evolved abilities and details in appearance. To further track down relating monsters out there and possible inspirations to its physical changes and origin, stay tuned for the Similar Beasts section near the end of this episode. It's a great place for you to expand on your research. Oh yes, and what about that Gorgon bull? Was it simply a manifestation of Dungeons & Dragons lore creators? In 1607, Edward Topsell published a bestiary entitled The History of Four-Footed Beasts. Here he describes a terrible creature, similar to an ox which feeds on herbs that enable it to exhale poisonous breath. Topsell also speaks of an African Gorgon, also known as Cadoplepas, which was based off the wildebeest. This creature could apparently turn people into stone with its stare or breath, and thereupon we see that influence of the Greek gorgon and its awful ability upon this quadruped. Speculating on the combination of the two beasties above and the originally named Greek gorgon, we can draw a rough conclusion of how the bovine gorgon type came into being within some of today's lore.
Monster lovers, I hope you've enjoyed this first part to all about the
Gorgon.
I look forward to seeing you in the second part, where we'll be starting right with the physiology, the science
Of the Gorgon.